Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to bridge what feels like a massive gap between the cold, hard math of quantum mechanics and the warm, philosophical reality of human existence. It's kind of funny. One of the most famous physics concepts of the 20th century actually started out as a joke. Seriously. Erwin Schrödinger originally came up with his famous cat thought experiment not to celebrate quantum rules, but to poke fun at how absolutely absurd they sounded when you applied them to everyday life. But here's the crazy part. What started as a scientific critique basically morphed into this incredibly beautiful metaphor for our own lives. So today, we're exploring the superposition of being, life through the Schrödinger lens. If you ever felt stuck at a crossroads or just weighed down by the what-ifs of paths you didn't take, well, stick around, because this is going to hit really close to home.
So what does a radioactive atom and a cat in a box have to do with your actual destiny? I know, it sounds like the setup to a really dark joke, but I want you to literally just sit with that question for a second. How on earth can a bizarre physics thought experiment from the 1930s, one involving radiation and an imaginary cat, actually explain the trajectory of your entire life? Like right down to the career you picked or the people you love? Well, it turns out the answer is hiding right there in how the universe handles uncertainty. Okay, moving into section 1, the famous quantum cat. Let's establish what Schrödinger was actually trying to prove here.
So picture the literal physical setup of this famous experiment. Step 1, you've got a completely sealed, opaque lead box. And inside is our subject, the famously unlucky cat. Step 2, right there in the box with the cat is a tiny single radioactive atom. Now, the trick with this atom is that it might decay or it might not. There is absolutely no way to predict when or if that's going to happen. Step 3, if the atom does decay, it triggers a mechanism that breaks a vial of poison. Step 4, well, that seals the outcome for the cat. But if it doesn't decay, nothing happens, and the cat is perfectly fine. The catch is, because this box is perfectly sealed, no windows, no sound, we have literally zero way of knowing what's going on inside. It is a game of pure, unobservable chance happening in the dark. Until we actually pry that box open, we are completely blind to the reality inside.
Which brings us to section 2, the human analogy. Let's take this cold scientific setup and use it as a lens for our own existence.
The metaphorical bridge here is just brilliant. Think of it like a one-to-one mapping. The cat, that represents human life, specifically your life. The box represents the great unknown, the future, all those potential paths you might take. The poison, as grim as it sounds, is the inevitability of death, the ultimate end of the journey for all of us. But here's the most fascinating part of the whole shebang, the radioactive decay. In human terms, that unpredictable decay is, well, it's the flat tire that makes you 10 minutes late to work. It's that split-second choice to grab coffee in the lobby instead of your usual spot, where you literally bump into the person you're going to marry. It's all those sudden, unpredictable external events, a chance meeting, a surprise job loss, a global shift that completely rewrite your trajectory in a single instant.
All right, section 3, the superposition of life. This is where we get into the absolute core of our analysis today. We're taking a hardcore quantum physics term, superposition, and applying it directly to you, to human potential. Superposition is basically a state where a human life exists in all possible outcomes at the exact same time. It means before a choice is finalized, you are simultaneously successful and unsuccessful, happy and unhappy. You're living in a bustling city, and you're in a quiet cabin in the woods. Really think about the emotional weight of that. Before you accept that new job, or say I do, or pack up your life into a moving truck, you hold every single potential reality inside you, all at once. It's that thrilling and, let's be honest, sometimes paralyzing anxiety of being a total blank slate. You exist in a superposition of all possible life paths, simultaneously. But then, action happens. The role of observation collapses what physicists call the wave function, which is basically just a fancy way of saying that the realm of infinite possibilities suddenly snaps into one single concrete reality. In the physics experiment, just opening the box to look inside forces the universe to pick a lane. The cat is either alive or dead. No more in between. In our human analogy, our actions are the observation. The moment you sign that lease, the second you hit send on that email, or even when an unpredictable event just happens to you, bam, the wave function collapses. All those infinite what-ifs vanish, and you are locked into one specific, lived trajectory. Just by moving through the world, you force the universe to make a choice. And that leads us to section 4, the illusion of free will. This is a deeply existential pivot about how much control we actually have. It brings up this massive, honestly kind of uncomfortable question.
does our consciousness truly dictate our destiny? Or are we just playing out predetermined possibilities? I mean, if our lives are so heavily shaped by these random radioactive events that we have absolutely no control over, like where we're born, a sudden illness, or just pure serendipity, it makes you wonder, are we really the authors of our own story? Or are we just running through a sprawling maze that was built way before we even got here? Think of our reality like a super delicate balancing scale. On one side, you've got free will, that deeply held belief that our conscious choices are dictating our destiny. On the exact opposite side, the constraints of fate, the predetermined possibilities, and totally unpredictable events that blindside us. What this whole concept points to is that we are caught exactly in the middle of those two forces. Yes, we make choices, we absolutely have agency, but we are very often making those choices from a menu of options that was handed to us by pure, unpredictable chance. Honestly, acknowledging that balance doesn't take away our power. If anything, it's a huge relief. It takes off that immense pressure we put on ourselves to try and control every single variable in our lives.
Finally, Section 5, Meaning in the Uncertainty. Let's see how all this builds into something inspiring rather than bleak. Because far from making life seem random or pointless, embracing all this uncertainty is a massive call to action. Now, first off, quick reality check. This is a philosophical metaphor, not literal physics. But the real takeaway here is that uncertainty doesn't diminish the value of your life at all. Is the unknown daunting? Absolutely, no doubt about it. But it's also the exact source of inspiration. Since your path isn't perfectly mapped out from A to Z, it pushes you to live with real intention. You don't just have to sit around waiting for your wave function to collapse on its own. You get to be the active observer of your life. And it really emphasizes finding meaning right here, in the present moment. Think about it. Right now, this exact split second is the only part of your timeline you are actively observing. You are collapsing your wave function right now. The past is set in stone, the future is just a cloud of probabilities. But today is where you hold the pen. Our source material sums up this entire journey beautifully. It says it challenges us to consider the nature of reality, the interplay between choice and fate, and the ultimate meaning of our lives in the face of uncertainty. And that right there hits the nail on the head. That is exactly how Schrödinger's cat elevates from a quirky thought experiment that, again, started as a joke, into this profoundly deep reflection on what it actually means to exist in a chaotic universe. So, I'm going to leave you with this one final thought. Is the meaning of life really about agonizing over making the perfectly right choices just to guarantee a good outcome? Or is it about embracing the sheer, wild uncertainty of the whole thing and finding meaning in the journey itself? I'll let you ponder your own state of superposition today. Think about all those incredible possibilities sitting right in front of you and how you're going to choose to observe the road ahead. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep learning.